Hare Krishna. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might happen to be in the world. Welcome to the Progressive Vaishnava Out of the Box Conference. This session is going to be led by Tamal Krishna Prabhu. I'll say a few words about him in a moment. And is discussing the important topic of world-denying and world-affirming approaches to bhakti. Let me say a few words and then we'll pass the mic straight over to Tamal Krishna Prabhu. So Tamal Krishna Prabhu is a disciple of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, storyteller, contemplative, social philosopher. His primary motives are decolonizing the psyche, transmutation of darkness, and the individuation of absolute identity. Lived as a brahmachari for 11 years, monastic life in Vrindavan, toured twice annually in Europe, the US, and South America. Also trained in shamanism, ancestral cosmovision, and ceremonial arts for 4 years in the Andean Sacred Valley of Peru. And in 2020, founded the Sri Ramana Purnima School of Prayer, his life work project through which he offers ceremonial kirtan katha retreats, private training in prayer method, and occasionally literature. Leads an intimate communal process at his humble ashram in the forest of North Florida, US, near Alachua. So welcome, Prabhu. We're very excited to hear from you. If you're here on the call, I will ask you to remain muted, and Tamal will probably speak for somewhere between 45, 60 minutes maybe, and then we'll have some Q&A. If you are watching on Facebook, welcome, and feel free to put any questions you might have in the chat there. I prefer everybody uses the chat function, and I'll do my best just to be monitoring everything behind the screen. So over to you, Tamal Prabhu.
Oh, Radhe Shyam. Thank you so much, Prabhu. It's an honor to be here. Quite delighted. Also nervous, of course, but I will take shelter of my guardians and guides first, sing some prayers, and then we can start them. Om. Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana-salakaya Chakshurum militam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaste Gurudevaya Sarva Siddhi Pradaine Sarva Mangala Rupaya Sarvananda Vidaine Radha Sammukha Samsaktim Sakhi Sangha Nivasini Tamaham Satatam Vande Guru Rupam Param Sakim Radhe Shakeli Prabhuta Vinoda Vinyasa Vigyam Radhavanditam Kripalu Tadya Kila Vishwavandyam Shri Purnamasim Shirasanamam Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah Advaita prakati krita narahari prashta swarupa priyo Nityananda saka sanatana gatihi Shri Rupa Hritketana Lakshmi Pranapatir Gadadhara Raso Lasi Jagannath Bho Sango Pangas Parshadaya Sadayatam Deva Sachinandanaha Krishna Chitta Stita Radha Radha Chitta Stita Hari Jivane Nidhane Nityam Radha Krishna Nirmama Shyama Sundar Shikanda Shekara Smera Hasamurali Manohara Radhikara Sikamam Kripa Nidhe Swapriya Charana Kinkarim Guru Bhajami Radham Aravind Netram Smarami Radham Madhura Smitasyam Vadami Radham Karunavaradham tato mamanyasti gatirna kati. Tavaivasmi na jivami taya vina. Iti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamam sharanam tikam. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Gaur Hari Bol, Radhe Shyam, Gadani Mai. So first I offer my Shraddha Pushpanjali, the little white flower of my faith at the lotus feet of my holy master and Shri Guru Parampara, to all Vaishnavas and all Vaishnavis, to all living beings of the past, present, and future, in all phases of life. I give my respect and I pray for the highest good of all. May the Kripa Shakti descending from the merciful heart of Shri Gaurasundar Mahaprabhu shower upon his whole creation and cause to sprout in the heart of all living beings their highest good fortune. Prem Dharma, may that Prem Dharma that is most natural to us, although we haven't known it yet, may that awaken and shelter us. Hare Krishna. So, here we are for this Progressive Vaishnavism out of the box conference to discuss a very interesting topic of world-affirming and world-denying approaches to bhakti. Now, when my friend reached out to me and invited me to speak in this conference, the topic that was offered to me was similar to the one that I'm going to speak about, but not exactly the same. The one that was offered to me was world-affirming versus world-denying approaches to bhakti. And I asked that we could change that not versus, but and, world-affirming and world-denying. Because life is polarity. Achintya Veda Veda Tattva means like there's a distinction and yet there's no division. There's distinction but not division in the polarity of life, the wholeness of life that descends from its original cause, Sri Yugala Kishore, Sri Radha Madhava. They are the prime cause of everything. Everything else besides them is the side effect and expansion of their glorious personal existence. And so everything at every quantum level, from them on down for all the spiritual and material worlds, and every plane of consciousness and every part of ourself, it's all coded with the same Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which means one and different. There's a wholeness that has polarity, complementarity, distinction. So it's important, right, to have any kind of real discussion, to discuss reality, that we attune to that principle of polarity and not dichotomy. It's not a dichotomy. There's a tension, a dynamic tension, a beautiful life agitating, life provoking tension of opposites, but those opposites are complements like sun and moon, fire and water, heaven and earth, eternity and this temporal creation, all are paired together. And in the old medieval texts of alchemy, the alchemists would describe in their coded language something called a great work. It's a big job to be done by the human being who is very attentive and intelligent and sensitive to the laws of nature, to the laws of life, who's participating in that, observing and deducing how life really is, and aligning themselves to it. The thoughtful alchemist, the adept, they perform what's called the great work. And it's described, it's to produce the philosopher's stone, or to transmute iron into gold, or distill the elixir of life. And finally, one other image that's used to describe the finality, the prayojan of the great work, is the holy marriage, to bring together, not to melt together, but to bring together in union, not union of indistinct gray melting, but a union of perfect connection, perfect relation, the polarity of life. So in our blessed Gaudiya Sampradaya, we are touched with the ideal of the ultimate servants of God. The ultimate position of service in life is that of the Brajavasis and Sri Vrindavan Dham. And among them, the gopis are so fortunate. And among them, the handmaidens of Sri Radha, who serve the divine couples coming together. They are the perfectional, topmost pinnacle, good fortune and completeness in their service to life. Those who are performing the holy marriage, bringing together the primordial two who are one, the one who is two, and the two who are really one. To bring them together is the great work, the great aspiration in the heart of Gaudiya Vaishnavas when they do their bhajan also. And so, it's important to be relevant to life as it is and to Vaishnavism, that we're not in a dichotomy. So for example, we're talking about being progressive, out of the box, progressive Vaishnavism. So all progressive Vaishnavism must take place out of the box. It cannot be restrained. Vaishnavism is the ultimate dynamism, the ultimate perpetual expansion, creative expansion of absolute existence. It has to be dynamic. It has to be out of any box. The definition of Maya is that which can be measured. What is absolute is expanding forever. It's perpetually blossoming, flourishing, anandamayi. So it cannot be boxed. What is real cannot be boxed. So progressive Vaishnavism, which for us, sadhakas in this world, we are not yet in the Leela of Bhagavan. It's blossoming in every moment with fresh prema vilas. We are here in the journey, our journey as sadhakas, as practitioners, as seekers, as distillers of our own golden potential from the iron of our conditioning. We cannot be boxed. To be progressive, that means entering into madhyam consciousness, mature adult spirituality, beginning with nishtha, nishtita bhakti, very firm. Not just that we get up at the same time every day and are able to repeat the same rituals every day. Nishtha bhakti means like an unwavering flame in the midst of all of the obstacles of life. Our heart remains fixed on God, fixed on Krishna, on our aspiration to develop a beautiful body that's fit to serve Krishna in his abode, face to face. Vaishnavism is very bold, audacious desire that I want to be face to face with God. I want to be as beautiful as God. I want to have a body that's made of nectar like God, so that I'm relevant for him, so that the sound of my laughter is enchanting even to him who is beauty personified. He should be enchanted by my smiling. So it's a very bold, audacious prospect of the Vaishnavas. And so nishtha, real nishtha, means not just that I'm fixed in finishing my rounds every day, or this guy never misses Mangalarti, or she never, but it means that the flame of our determination for the absolute doesn't flicker. We are not confused or distracted from the prospect of our true being. And that will blossom into ruchi, so much flavor of realization, and then asakti, becoming addicted to the taste of our identification with the other world, and then bhav, the full flowering of our identity. This is progressive Vaishnavism. Progressive Vaishnavism means bhakti is progressively unfolding her glory in the heart of the devotee. Bhakti Devi is growing from a sweet little baby of Shraddha, tender little baby that we have to take care of. She's becoming a Kishori. She's learning not just to walk, but to dance. She's learning to sing. Progressive Vaishnavism means that. Bhakti Devi is really having her way. Bhakti Devi is really showing her ornaments. And that has to happen outside of the box. So we cannot be boxed as liberal. We cannot be boxed as conservative. There has to be a holy marriage of both polarities, We have to be both, a Vaishnav, a very dynamic being, can put on the hat of conservatism or liberalism. Conservative means conserving, protecting the jewels that have been carefully passed down for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, if you're counting from the beginning of the parampara, from the seed of the Gayatri in Krishna's flute, entering into the heart of Brahma, from the beginning of creation, or we say from the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for hundreds of years, we've been carefully, one generation after the next, because of being conservative, conserving the core principles, the core ideal. If that's changed or lost, a shadow may continue. We may have for 100 generations people thinking they're Vaishnavas, but they're far off the path. So that's necessary. To be conservative is a necessary aspect of being a Vaishnava. And to be liberal is also a necessary aspect, because every generation has its new challenges. How are we going to present to the world in its ever-evolving or devolving, but ever-changing and shifting condition, a language that is relevant today, a presentation that is relevant? How do we conserve the living essence that is already perfect and needs no reformative touch from us conditioned souls? And on the other hand, how are we liberal enough to really listen to the heartbeat of humanity in this day and age, and all those who are struggling and feeling excluded, and who are feeling for one reason or another, and some very subtle and complex reasons, feeling shut out? How do we make sure that that door is open to them? Not just a door open that they can fit in a socio-religious institution, but that they can really access that which is conserved, the living vintage, private stock of wealth of Vaishnavism, which is bhajan, which is realization. So we have to be out of the box. If we're only liberal and then we're against the conservatives, we've lost already the spirit of things. And if we're only conservative and we're not liberal enough to see how people are being excluded and how we can reach them and feed them and serve them, then it's also just as lost, because what's the sense of keeping a treasure locked in a box when no one benefits? So my preamble, we need to be progressive. We have to be out of the box. Naham vipro na janarapatir na vivaishya sudra. Mahaprabhu is saying, I'm not a Brahmin or a Kshatriya. I'm not in this or that stage of life. I'm not black. I'm not white. I'm not oppressed. I'm not privileged. I am the soul. Kintu nikila paramananda purnamitabde gopi bharatu padakamala dasa dasa. I'm not any of these things. And so this is the first aspect of Vaishnavism, is world denying. That means there is an aspect that is necessary at some point to deny that this is me. This story that I'm embedded in this life. If I'm listening to my Guru Parampara, if I identify with the ideals of Vaishnavism, I have to listen to my elders in my Parampara, and they're telling me, I am not this body. I'm not the story that I'm embedded in. I will permanence, I will continue when everything that I can see and feel and experience through my sensory periscope, when it's all destroyed and turned to dust and ash, I will continue. So the basis of sanity is, first of all, a good dose of world denying that I pertain to this world. And then, there's coming back to where we're at. What's our unfinished business in this world that holds us? Okay, I want to do bhajan, I want to chant. It sounds so beautiful. Sri Vrindavan forest, and to be free, barefoot with God, full of flowers in the forest. Sounds so nice. Sign me up. But people can stick their head in the sand of that beautiful ideal, hiding from their unfinished business in the world. The individuation, the curing of all of the places where impersonalism has taken seed in the psyche. We can think when we're new devotees, and if we can stay new devotees for 50 years easily. We can think when we're in an immature stage, a juvenile stage, that just by chanting a lot or just by staying in the temple, that this will be enough for me to become self-realized. But anartha nivriti, the cleansing of the heart, is a very sophisticated job. It takes adult investment. And so to be able to successfully transcend, we have to lift anchor. You can be trying to sail, but if the anchor is down, you're dragging anchors very hard. So our spiritual life, our world denying, will not be fully successful. It's like half done. We heard, I'm not the body, and just clinging to that, we can stick ourselves in a liminal in-between position where we neither realize, neither successful in our spiritual life. It's not occurring, it's not happening. We're just hoping for a post-mortem salvation, like the Christians or others. That's not the yoga psychology. It's a ripening process. We have to pass through stages of sweetening and softening and development. Anyway, not to sound too abstract, just that there's we have engagement in this world, and especially if we're in the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, if we're downstream of him, if we're downstream of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, our line is so much informed by the heart of generosity. There are other lines, I'm not comparing, I'm not contrasting, but there are other lineages, other parivars and lineages that, they do a lot of austerity. They stay on the banks of Radhakund or different places and Braj in a holy place and chant so many rounds and, 25 different kinds of Gayatri mantras and so many kinds of visualization methodology and Archan Smaran Padati and so many complex applications of the psychic attention to try to focus on the other world is very hard labor. And for a Western psyche to jump into that, what to speak of kind of anyone, it's hard for anyone. And but for those who are called to it, that's where grace calls them, go for it. But we who in this conversation are downstream of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our invitation to participate in the grace of Gauranga Mahaprabhu is passing through their heart. It's contingent upon kind of unspoken agreement that we will participate in the mercy mission, that we will participate in the welfare of the world. We won't just close our eyes to the world and stay under a tree in Braj and exclusively world deny. We have to embrace the world. It means embrace with love, embrace with compassion. We have to find some individuated place that we fit in a mercy mission of our masters, of our ancestor acharyas. Then they'll be pleased if we sit at the table with them. If we involve our heart in their concerns, then we'll be blessed also to involve our heart in their ideals. And they will share with us from their overflowing cup, something that we will never, as crusty little crippled Kali Yuga jivas, would never have the strength and power to absorb our mind in Goloka Vrindavan. It's fundamentally impossible without a higher power descending, without Samvit and Vladini potencies descending from a higher world upon the platform of Sandini in our consciousness. If a Holy Spirit of Kripa Shakti doesn't come, Swarup Shakti, when she comes down from the higher world to us jivas, that becomes Kripa Shakti. When the energy of the higher world, the divine power, decides to share itself with us, we call that Kripa Shakti, the descending of the higher power. And without that pollinating touch of a higher hand, there's no Krishna consciousness development. And so it's implicit that each generation who really wants that prema dharma, each generation has to come out of the box of what was comfortable. Whatever the previous pioneers did, the generation before, when that wave passes, as all things in this world pass, then it crystallizes, and the next generation will try to hold on to, like a child hiding behind its mother's skirts, will try to hold on to the past pioneering, the out-of-the-box courageous endeavors of the previous generation. But the next generation is asked to make its own developmental moves under the inspiration, under the influence of those same masters, under the influence of those same ideals that are, by appropriate conservative protection, kept at heart. So we'll try to give some more concrete examples of the great marriage, the reconciliation of world affirming and world denying both. And one thing right away I want to say is that when we talk about Vaishnavism's world denying, because the others are world denying also, Mayavadis are also world denying, neti, it's not this, it's not that, none of this is real, it's all false. That by itself is Mayavad. No, mokshavad, the desire to be free of samsara, not to love someone, not to serve someone, not to even be someone, just to be free of trouble. That manifests as sheer world denying. World denying itself, in and of itself, is the impulse of Mayavad, of impersonalism, of nihilism. But for the Vaishnava, it's different. It's, in essence, what Vaishnav world denial is, which stands in healthy polarity with world embracing, prem dharma, love for the world, for all jivas, and love for the creative opportunity of pioneering out of the box in our own generation. It's a wonderful opportunity we have to be part of the lila of our parampara that keeps evolving and developing. But for devotees, in the Shikshastakam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes it very clear what is the spirit of our renunciation or world denying is sunyayatam jagat sarvam govinda virahename. This Shikshastakam verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying, the whole world appears to be void. There's nothing here. It's empty. It's useless. It's a burden upon me. It's painful to be here. This is not my home. There's nothing and no one here that pertains to me. Shunyaitam jagat sarvam. The whole world, this whole creation is zero. Govinda virahename. In separation from Krishna, when someone is developing progressive Vaishnavism, nishtha, starting from nishtha, from some maturity, not the projection of a kanishta, but anishtita and jataruchi bhakta, someone who's maturing, who's actually developing prema, maitri, kripa, upeksha, the moods of a mature devotee. Their heart is starting to bloom and to open. The miracle of bhakti yoga is starting to happen. For them, there is a moment just that they will feel separation in their bhajan life. Just like riding a bicycle, you push one pedal and the other pedal comes up. You push that pedal and the other one comes up. Or pendulum swinging back and forth. Life is polarity for the devotee, between meeting, feeling great inspiration and taste, and the closeness of Krishna, and the wonderful prospect of attaining Krishna. It's all so enlivening and nectarian and resuscitating for the soul that's thirsty. And then the next moment, it passes, just like day becomes night. And when night is fully mature, it becomes day. So that following in the wake of the great inspiration and the sense of meeting with Krishna, there comes a profound sense of separation, the distance. Oh, how wonderful is Krishna. How wonderful to love Krishna. But alas, I start to feel how far I am from him, how riddled I am with incoherences. So that separation mood, when it hits, Govinda virahename, in the moment of actually feeling the separation from Krishna, it's a subjective state of consciousness. In that mode, nothing in this world can console me. Nothing in this world is any value to me when I'm realizing and I'm tasting everything I want and need is my beloved, is my friend, is my Krishna. When that mood is actually touching, vairagya occurs naturally for anyone, for everyone. Vairagya is a natural effect of developing devotion. And vairagya, we're saying, means renunciation. The word actually means, if you break it down, vaishishta rupena rag. Vairagya literally means a very special kind of attachment. It doesn't mean just voidism, giving up everything. It means so intensely attached to an otherworldly prospect. This heart has been wounded by the beauty and flavor of a higher taste and cannot forget, has been marked. It has wounded all of the pleasures and comforts and conveniences and consolations of this temporal life have all been mortally wounded in their value. They no longer seem to hold value compared to this, what has occurred by the grace of Bhakti Devi, by the grace of God, some realization, some little even first drop, no boom, completely overshadows, eclipses all the sense of the world being home and being pleasurable and being desirable and being meaningful. But that is a state. That is a state, just like the sparkling stars of nighttime is a state. You know, you go outside at night and see the stars sparkling and the moon rising, and it's a beautiful flavor of being. And when the night is fully ripe, you know, the eastern horizon will start to blush and the sun will rise and the birds will come alive and the forest will go from purplish, bluish, black to green again. And you will see the world, and day has its own flavor, you know, and they follow each other. And so like that, the heart of Vaishnava, you know, we're talking about world affirming and world denying approaches to bhakti. The approach to bhakti, approaching, successfully progressing in bhakti, means both, like day and night, following each other. Someone will do bhajan. At that time, they renounce the world. When you pick up your mala, that is the time to let go of all, even your service projects, even anything you've got going in this world that you think is like important and meaningful, even spiritually, for the soul who is not the body, for the soul whose homeland is an entirely other dimension. When we pick up our japa mala, when we close our eyes, it's time to renounce the world. It's time to lean into the sense of our poverty, of our need, of the distance between us and the place where we really belong, the function that we really are meant to be doing, the body that we're really meant to be occupying. Eternal transcendental soul needs a very beautiful, deathless body that's adequate for expressing its affections and its genius. So at the time of bhajan, in the moonlight of our internal life, we should deny the world. It's necessary. You can't cross the river in 2 boats. You choose 1 boat. And when it's time to do bhajan, it's not time to think about what will I even say in my class this afternoon when I'm speaking in the temple, or, you know, it's not even time to think about our service in the world. It's time to pine for our home. And when the sun rises and the mala is complete, you know, pausing anyway, then it's time to be enthusiastic, to switch gears like the 2 pedals on the bike. It's time to come out of the moonlight of our soul's romantic longing for God. And it's to come into our like sunlit rainbow hummingbird mode, and like really with great enthusiasm, and theos, with God in the heart. Enthusiasm means with theos, with God in your heart. Step into your God-given duties. To individuate. World affirming means I affirm I have a job to do in this world, a sacred role. This is not my home, but I'm here because of God's arrangement. I'm here because Krishna has me here, my best friend who knows everything that I need. And there's no better planner of my life, no better designer of my process than Krishna, than Krishna's Yogamaya. Well, this must be the most perfect day, the most perfect thing. And one seeks to find, where do I fit? How do I serve? I don't just want to copy my guru or copy previous acharyas, especially since I know that every generation is a process of nature, has to come out of the box of the calcified previous generations' pioneering efforts. No, it's just the law of nature. The pioneering efforts of one generation calcify, they cool down like magma, turns from flowing liquid magma, you know, luminous lava, turns into black, solid, cold stone with time. So we have to find, it's very exciting, world affirming for a Vaishnava as an approach to bhakti means I have some good sacred work to do here. And if I can put my hand on my heart, if I can take good advice, if I can do the vision quest of praying and seeking in myself, really with companions who I trust, with wise elders who I respect, consulting the Shastra, taking, you know, the blessings and support of my community and my tradition and my ideals, let me find myself. Let me go up on the mountain of Hanblecha, a vision quest, and come back knowing how I am to embrace the world, how I am to embrace my role in this lifetime, in the daylight. And the devotee spends their daylight embracing the world, embracing like, I have some sacred work to do here, and doing it like an artist, doing it with, you know, when Krishna says to Arjuna to do your duty without attachment to the fruits, it doesn't mean without like vigor, doesn't mean like with dryness, with like, I did my duty and, you know, I don't care what happens. No, I'm doing my duty with great enthusiasm, with great inspiration, knowing that it's meaningful, knowing that by domino effect, my efforts under the influence of my Guru Parampara will actually, like a domino effect, benefit all living beings in the whole creation. I may be small, but I'm plugging into the current of my Guru Parampara's power, that prema bhakti shakti power, is coming down the pipe from a higher world, from Parashakti herself, from Radhika herself is coming down. The supreme power, and I'm plugging into that. So I may be small, but I'm plugging into something big. And my efforts, if they're the right, if I can deduce properly, not copy someone else, but actually individuate in this world, embrace my duty, then my efforts will, like domino effects, will be good for all living beings. And that's exciting. I'm enthusiastic. And I embrace my role in the world without attachment to the fruits. Means I'm not not going to look back over my shoulder when it's time to die. When it's time to die and cash in on a life of integrity, when my holy masters and my deities come to embrace me with their mercy, when I finally get to see their faces. I may not be ripe and perfectly ready to go back home yet in one life, but a life of integrity will entitle me at least for an audience of those for whom I sacrificed joyfully and also painfully. A full spectrum life means we sacrifice everything. Sacrifice means make sacred, make our pain sacred. We struggle for something worth struggling for. Like Krishna says to Arjuna, you are lamenting for something not worthy of lamenting. You're crying and stressing and going pale and sweating about a war, about these people who are not really their bodies being moved on, vacated from their bodies. This is not worth crying about. This is not what lamentation is for. There is something higher that is worthy of your precious lamentation. Lamentation is for longing for God, for melting the heart in the furnace of unfulfillment, in the furnace of need. You need association with those who are also burning at heart so that we can learn like that and become whole beings, sacrificing, sanctifying the full spectrum of our humanity. And so the day passes, trying to stay busy, without attachment to the fruits. I don't know, my efforts will come to success or not. I just am attached to living a life of integrity so that I can see my deities and my masters when I die, And when the day passes, when the day is over and the sun sets, in my house, in our ashram here, we just put on candles. We don't use electricity lights at night because we're trying to let the night have her own swarup. Night has a nature. It's humans and all of life is meant to be soothed and meant to have certain opportunities of darkness. We don't want to just like stamp out all the darkness, pave over, colonize, hide away all the darkness of life. That feminine mystery of life is life-giving. So when the day ends, we wash our hands of all of our preoccupation with our mercy mission implication, all of our meaningful engagement, each one to find their own. At the end of the day, put it down and, again, return to that healthy Vaishnav world denial, denying that any of this is really my permanent position. So in the moonlight of our internal life, we deny the world and affirm another world. We affirm our real home is not here. We affirm our nature as soul. If we don't do that, if we don't have a devotional world-denying time where we let go of this world and actually feel like, alas, alas, why am I so implied here? This is not my home. If we cannot have remorse for how deeply embedded we are in the temporal reality, how deeply embedded we are in identifying with the mortal body that is unsuitable, unworthy of our real nature. If we cannot have any remorse about that, then we cannot be receptive either to the grace power that comes down that would make our daylight activities, when it's time to embrace the world again, that would make them potent. So this is the holy marriage. The holy marriage of Vaishnavism, at the ultimate level, we want to bring that dark and fair lovers together, but bring the divine couple together. We chant Hare Krishna, just that's what it means. We're trying to bring them together. And at this quantum level of our sadhaka journey, we're trying to bring together the moonlight and the daylight of our world-denying separation from God, that this world is not my home, and the world embracing, but my Guru Parampara, my family loves this world. My family loves the living beings of this world. And with them, I also will love. I will imply myself wholeheartedly in my way. And so I like to give some examples, like our Thakur Bhakti Vinod, so inspiring. Who is like him? And he is this kind of person who has the holy marriage in his heart. He has this wholeness. He's a householder with like 13 children. He has enormous social implication. He's a Supreme Court judge in the Royal British government, and he's also like the temple president of Jagannath Mandir. Jagannath Puri. There's like thousands and thousands of pilgrims every day, and he's personally managing. He's responsible, deputing to others perhaps plenty, but he's personally responsible every day that thousands of pilgrims coming for darshan of Sri Jagannath Dev, they have prasad and they have lodging and they have what they need, and he's overlooking all of that, overlooking like the health of society as a judge, making sure that there's justice and that there's like restraint on the animal propensities of people, and reconciling, peacemaking. 13 children to see to their education and their care. He's involved in so many religious societies. He's giving discourses. He's doing so many things. And then he goes home and, in the evening, he'll have 2 chapatis and a glass of milk and go to sleep at 10 p.m. and sleep for 2 hours. And then he'll get up and he will chant Harinam all night and cry, doing bhajan, thinking of another world, and alternatively write. He's writing in the night. But what is he writing about? He's so world embracing, so world affirming. He had like, what is it, Trafalgar Square? What's the main, like the Times Square of London? He had a picture of like that central square in London by his bed. Like, dreaming that there will be Sankirtan in London. He was totally like the Native Americans say, to really be a responsible human, you have to think 7 generations ahead. He was really thinking about the welfare of everyone in the world, and how by himself, we never hear that he had like associates with him who he was conspiring with and like strategizing with. He was just completely taking the full responsibility because he felt called. He saw the need. He was inspired by God. And he was thinking generations ahead about the whole world's welfare, and step by step, how to embrace the world with arms of love and compassion. And so he's writing books, but in his books, he's writing like Jaiva Dharma. He's writing a book where the whole ideal is about Babaji's. He's completely involved in the world, is maximally like as any human being has ever been, taking care of an enormous family and so many duties. And at the same time, he's showing through his ideals like Jaiva Dharma, his story about people, all of them, one after the next, leaving their home, moving into the forest. They're not even sannyasis. They don't even have the shelter of like, society is obliged to give me donations, and society is like, they're not even part of society. They completely leave the shelter of social protection and take shelter of God. Like, world denying. Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself is embracing the entire society, but he's writing about his fantasy ideal. The highest ideal in his heart is a society of Babas in the forest and Bhajaniyas that have completely rejected society. That's his ideal. And then he's writing songs, Kabeaha Gauranga Bolia, or when will I, as a householder, as a like totally implied person, when he's singing his prayers, when will I leave all of this? When will I roam, barefoot in some rags in the holy Dham, begging some food door to door from untouchables in the holy Dham? And when I'm thirsty, I'll just drink like a deer from the Ganga. When will I roam with no obligation to society, with no implication in the world at all, in a holy place, roaming there? Why? So that in ecstasy, I will swoon and I will see visions of transcendence. He's only roaming. Where in the world will he go? To the one place where the like radio waves, where the antennas, the holy Dham is a place where there's antennas for those whose hearts are clean to see visions of the other world. And so his ideal in his heart is utter denial of society, utter, renouncing of the world, roaming alone with your mind obsessed with God. And then what does he do? He gets on a horse and he rides village to village promoting Namahata. No, he didn't promote monastic order that people should leave their families and leave their villages and they should all join the monasteries and take sannyas. No, he went village to village and he went to the elders of the village and he gave them himself mridangas, kartals. He gave them he wrote songbooks that are full of these moods, like when will I leave everything and roam in the holy places, crying for Radha Madhava and Gaur Gadadhar. He's giving these moods to society, to villages, and telling them, come together. You all have deities in your own home. Namahata means you go from house to house in the village. There's no centralized institution. It's a village culture that matches the village culture of Goloka Vrindavan, that matches the village culture of eternal Goloka Navadvip. The eternal aspiration of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is to live in family life, to live in a heaven, a spiritual realm that is all about community, that's all about human-like. It's not even we're there to like worship God together and like sing hymns and blow conch shells. We don't even want Krishna to be God. We just want to be friends with our village family. It's a realm, an ideal of absolute family society. But of course, it's completely anandamayi. It's completely transcendental, ecstatic intimacy, the supreme sanctum sanctorum. But you see how Bhaktivinoda Thakur, layer after layer. So himself in his heart, he wants to be a Baba roaming everywhere alone. And he's writing books about that. Then to promote that ideal of world denial, again, vairagya, he's not promoting just give up the world for its own sake because it's bad. He's trying to promote vairagya, vaishishta rag, very profound rag, very profound attachment for another world. He's not promoting that the world is bad. He's promoting that the other world is so good and that you, oh beautiful soul, are so good that you should be there too. So his ultimate ideal is world denial aimed at world embracing, spiritual world embracing family village life. And to promote that, bhajaniya lifestyle, he's writing books and distributing them and creating an infrastructure of empowering villages and families, community, right? And then to make sure that his message, his gospel would go to the whole world and that his inner heart's desires would be fulfilled, go all the way to London, go all the way to everywhere in the world as he dreamed. So Srila Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he created world-denying Gaudiya Math. He was like emergency situation. So he pulled the cream of Bengali society and others, like the most educated people, he pulled them out and he empowered them with profound sacred knowledge. He gave them these lightning rod dandas and he sent them out to create mats, to create monastic spaces, not because the ultimate ideal is monasticism, but because it was a battlefield commission. We need to get these books of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, these conceptions spread out everywhere. So I'm asking all of you, oh intelligentsia, oh cream of Bengali society, I'm asking you all to give up everything else and join me. Don't get married, don't have kids, don't have anything else obligation, and speak this gospel everywhere so that the word of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is what? Namahat, empowering villages, communities. It's not meant to be centralized on the temple. If there's a temple, that's an opulence, that's great. But the long-term infrastructure of our prophet, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is village and community based. And then, so anyway, so many things to share and my time is not so much. I've only got about 10 minutes to wrap up here. And I feel like I'm just getting started, but maybe in our discussions, we can flesh it out more. But so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was followed, he came out of the box. He wanted to get the books. He said, the books of Bhaktivinoda Thakur shouldn't mold in cold storage. They need to come out of the box. So he created the Gaudiya Mutt, which by the way, mutt in Bengal, it means like a clay pot. He created an institution and he's saying this clay pot, it's clay. It has, the institution itself has inherently zero value. Just like a clay pot is utterly disposable. He's trying to distribute a substance in that mutt, in that institutionalized infrastructure. It's just a mutt. It's just a clay pot that you throw away when you've, transferred the contents that are really the point. So Saraswati Thakur would say that institutionalized religion is a necessary evil. It's inherently problematic. It's inherently not the real ideal. It's not the real thing, but it's necessary for educational purposes to distribute the real contents. But every clay pot breaks. Gaudiya Math broke. Then afterwards, there are different branches. The most famous worldwide, successful evangelic success, ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada's glorious contribution. But that was his contribution. And there's a new box to come out of in this generation. And what was amazing about Srila Prabhupada, one thing, was he would tell sannyasis, go do this mission, go do that mission, Radha Damodar bus party, whatever. And then he would tell young, 22-year-old householder, young couple with a little baby, brand new baby, he'd say, go across the ocean and get me a temple in London. And they'd be like, yes, Prabhupada. And it didn't matter whether they were sannyasis, whether they were householders, whether they were men or women. Prabhupada was coming out of the box like everyone. It was necessary in the time of the Gaudiya Math, in that cultural context, of India and Indian culture, that they were men, like the same reason Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, to have clout. No one's going to listen to me as a householder. If I shave my head and carry the stick, they'll listen. So, but now in this present generation, so many things have cracked. So many things are the pot has cracked. The box is ruptured. And now there are a lot of people who don't want to hear from someone with a shaved head and a stick. Not that there's necessarily everybody doing that is wrong, but so many have done wrong. So many have done wrong that it's spoiled a lot of the charm, And also you can only pave over the sacred feminine so long before she starts sprouting through the pavement, before the whole world starts starving for something besides logos, for the real taste of life, the mystery, the subjective experience, the love of the community, equality. That sacred Sophia feminine, she will have her rising. She can only be pushed down so long, and then she will show her power, and she will forcibly come out. And she may come out by rupturing the collective unconscious with scandals and terrible, people are repressing, and then things come squirting out, cracks. But she will, that's why I'm deducing my diagnosis is it's time for her wave. And so many examples I wanted to give. I have about a couple minutes left. And I just wanted to say, like Bhagavan himself and Bhagavati herself, whenever God, the divine couple, perform Naravat Leela, human-like pastimes, they're also doing world-denying and world-affirming, because that's what humans, real holistic, individuated humans do. A whole human has that alchemic holy marriage inside of loving the world and also transcending the world, both. If you don't transcend the world, you can't truly love the world. It's not possible. If you don't unhook like a little caterpillar, if he's on a leaf, until he reaches up, this little inchworm, if he doesn't touch a higher leaf, before he contacts it, he cannot lift off the other one. He has to actually touch it, make contact with a higher leaf before he can transfer himself. If someone is not contacting the higher world, if they're not reaching for the higher world, if you're just we're going to distribute more books and we're going to give more classes and we're going to do whatever, even liberal things or conservative things or anything that's just on this plane and is not really conserving the jewel of the parampara, which is to seek above all things the other world and your own divine identity. Your real prospect is not in this world at all. This world is training. This world is training wheels. So if we're not reaching and contacting like little wormy, if we're not actually making contact with the Swarup Shakti, a higher power, we have nothing new to share in this world. We are just become all of our activities, whether they're conservative or liberal, they're all just socio-religious karma, to be frank. It's nothing, it's not a pollinating. A flower to become a fruit has to be pollinated. A substance has to touch inside that flower to quicken the potential of the plant to produce a fruit. So we all have a flower of I'm soul, I'm on the spiritual path. But unless the higher power is touching us, unless we are associating with the atemporal reality, getting some contact with that, then we have nothing new to contribute. We're not pollinating anything. We're just moving chess pieces around on the board, but nothing changes. So Anyway, Bhagavan and Bhagavati, they're also doing Lord Sri Ram, one of my favorite examples. He spent so many thousands of years in Treta Yuga doing this pastime of polarity in the daylight. Lord Ram, after so many years in the forest and rescuing Sita and then having to banish Sita again, then Lord Sri Ram, he would sit on his throne as a solitary king, this lonely king without his queen. He would sit on his throne and all day long he would satisfy the people. If someone needed money for their daughter's marriage or dowry, he would give them 10 times what they needed. If someone needed a couple helpers, was getting old and they needed helpers to work the fields this season, he would send his best soldiers to help them. Everybody, anyone and everyone who had any complaint or any need, like a father, Ram, he embraced the world. He embraced his kingdom. He gave his heart for his people and served them all day. And at the end of the day of embracing the world, spending all of his time in sacrificing his entire attention for the welfare of every small person. There's one story even of a dog. He's like, at the end of the day, he's like, Lakshman, is there anyone else waiting outside the assembly hall who wants to talk to me? And Lakshman looked outside and said, no, everyone's happy. They're all gone home to their own families. Ram's like, no, I feel someone's upset. There's someone who wants to see me. Someone's heart is not at peace. Lakshman looked outside again. He said, there's just a dog out here. And he said, that's him. He wants to see me. So even to a dog, like he had a grievance, Lord Ram wanted to stay over past hours, work overtime to pacify even a dog, loving everyone. But at the end of the day, when everyone's pacified, he would say thank you to the staff, the palace staff, go into his rooms, good night, everyone, close the door, hang up his crown, take off his royal robes, and hit the ground and spend the entire night crying, ha, Sita, weeping bitterly, weeping terribly. The only thing he really cares about is Sita, his beloved who's away in the forest, terrible circumstances of separation. Vipralamba prema that they came in this world to taste had separated them. And he rolled on the ground all night for thousands of years, crying all night in the moonlight of his private internal life, forgetting this kingdom is nothing. He didn't want the fancy bed, silken king's bed. He didn't want his fine clothes. He didn't eat anything from the kitchen. He was thinking, my Sita is living in the forest, eating fruits and roots and leaves. How will I sleep on a good bed while she sleeps on the earth and eats roots? How will I eat good food while she eats like that? He would starve just eating leaves and roots and rolling on the ground. And in the daytime, in the morning, get himself together, clean himself up, wash his face, take a ceremonial bath, and step into the daylight to shine as the emperor of the sun dynasty, who gives life to the whole world just like the sun. And that's a whole human being. That's called Naravat Lila. God is showing a holistic human life is both world affirming. You give your life in the daylight, your blood, sweat, and tears for the welfare of those who are within your circle of influence. And when the daylight passes in your private internal life, to be whole, to be complete, and to make room for power to enter inside of you, you have to weep, you have to deny the world. Sunyayatam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. The whole world to me, oh Lord, in separation from you, when I come close to that feeling of how much I need you, how much I feel that I exist for you, and yet you're so far and I cannot see you. Nothing in this world can console me. Not even my own virtuous activities mean anything to me. Oh my Lord, there's no replacement for you. And this is the heart of progressive Vaishnavism. To progress, the referent is not actually that we're doing so much service in the daylight to evolve and to open our box and to reach others and to adapt to the needs of the hour of history. That's not really the referent engine of progress. The referent engine of progress is crying. Crying in the privacy of our heart, denying that this world is our home. And to swing between those two is the holy marriage, to reconcile those two things. And they're not split. It's not like timeshare, one and then the other. Like yin yang. Inside of yin, there's some yang. Inside of yang, there's some yin. So there's a touch of meeting inside of separation, separation inside of meeting, and to expose oneself to that alchemic process. That is bhakti yoga. That is the great work. And therefore, this talk, it cannot be world affirming versus world denying approaches to bhakti. That is not correct. That will not help us. There has to be reconciliation, holy marriage, world affirming, embracing, loving, serving the world with the whole heart, and also world denying to uproot from here and to reach for a higher plane where we truly belong. Because, you know, what profit a person to save the world and lose their own soul? The whole power of what we contribute to others, the medicine and the potency and the pollinating effect of our words when we speak with others and help others, that's in direct proportion to how much we are longing ourselves, how much we have integrity of wanting to love Krishna. Because in this world, we don't serve Krishna. In this world, we serve other living beings, we serve movements, we serve ideals, we serve ourselves, the progress of our consciousness. But to serve God and Krishna, to serve Krishna, you have to go to him. So we cannot forget the centerpiece. God is the centerpiece. And that involves some vairagya. You know, that involves a very profound, specialized attachment that looks like kind of detachment. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, and thank you so much for a very enlivening and enlightening talk. We have about half an hour. I don't know if it's a hard finish at 90 minutes, but half an hour or so for questions. I think there's about 5 or 6 questions, so I'm just putting that out there for you to budget time. First of all, I'm going to invite Vijay Krishna Prabhu to unmute himself and potentially put on his camera and ask away.
Yes, Damodar Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you, Prabhu. You're most kind. And Tamal Prabhu, can you hear me?
Indeed, sir. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And if I may say it, all glories to your most merciful and charitable association. Wonderful class, Prabhu, if I may say it. Prabhu, my question is, for me to approach bhakti, and you know this better than me, I do need to approach a guru by offering him menial service and submissive questions. Based on this, my question is, why can't I approach the guru in the mood of material friendship, like me sharing my material accomplishments with him and him sharing his realizations in bhakti with me? So no submission required, just friends. That is my question.
Well, Prabhu, the question is not easy. There's so many angles. This is one of the great mysteries that resurfaces again in the present day of like, what is how do we understand the relationship with Sri Guru, you know, in this day and age, with all the things that we've seen, you know, with all the factors, you know, the difficulty of our position of someone needing a guru. Who needs a guru is someone who is Guru means from darkness to light. Who will take us from ignorance to illumination is guru. So that means we're in darkness, we have ignorance, which means we don't really know who's fully enlightened. We can't really know that. So this is complex, because sometimes it's, people will say, well, you need a Mahabhagavat guru. You need a like absolutely self-realized guru who's a transparent via medium, like Srila Prabhupada. You know, that's what guru means. No? But so with Srila Prabhupada, with a transparent via medium, someone who's the emissary of God, you don't want to go talk to them about your material things. You're just like face to face with the presence of God. So, you know, there's a verticality there. You know, there's a verticality and a descending. Swarup Shakti, the energy of the higher world that the jiva needs to, you know, this is the one place where merging is wanted. We want our jivatma to merge with Swarup Shakti, that we become part of that higher plane. Now, without the touch of Swarup Shakti, we cannot participate in the higher world. We're not attuned to it. We need to be sheltered by it, to marry with that higher energy. You know? And when Swarup Shakti comes down to give us that chance, it's Kripa Shakti. Mercy is coming. Mercy means the higher power is coming down. So it's a vertical descent like the Ganga, when the Ganga comes down to the earth. And so Sri Guru, the pure devotee, Mahabhagavat self-realized Vaishnava, who is saturated like a rasgulla with Swarup Shakti, that person is, God tattva for us. They are that substance, that God energy for us. And the relationship with them, they've already come down to our plane. That energy has already mercifully come. They have already met us halfway. If such a personality like Srila Prabhupada appears in this world, God has already, the divine realm has already met us halfway by coming to that's astonishing, to come into this place from that place. You cannot be more generous than that. And so we have to meet them halfway. And that means, let me meet on your terms. It's a vertical descending, so I'm looking up to that. I'm just here to receive. Srila Prabhupada, that emissary of God we don't have time to waste telling them about our material accomplishments, and unless it's like, hey, I've got this thing to do that's going to be great for your mission. This is going to be great for helping other jivas. So that kind of person also is very rare. What's much more common through all of history and present history is the person who's far less qualified, operating in the role of guru. And it's tricky, because on one hand, it's the principle of Sri Guru is there, so I should treat it vertically. I should look up to this person as an emissary of God, right? But drinking the foot water of a conditioned soul who's kind of representing institutionally the principle of Guru Tattva is not the same as drinking the foot water of Srila Prabhupada. There's a direct Ganga descent of grace with that level of person. And this is an unresolved issue. It's like, I know I'm not speaking in a straight line in answer to your question. It's kind of like a circle I'm going in, because actually what you bring is it's not directly to the point of world affirming and world denying. The way that I'm taking it, I get what you're saying. It's how to share your worldly accomplishments and your also dharmic activities and things. It's relevant. It's part of who you are. It's part of introducing yourself. It's part of also making yourself available. These are my qualifications. These are my gifts. This is what I come with. You want to be seen also as something valuable. So all of that is relevant. But yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think in this time, we need a whole other space to even start this conversation. I hope that this conversation will be clear within our generation. What to speak of a little Zoom room talk. This is a big topic about how do we, conservative and liberal, how do we conserve the essence of the ethic with divine guidance in the form of Sri Guru, whether that's the pure devotee or the principle represented by a surrendered, not yet pure devotee, but surrendered representative, or, and then the liberal side is how well is it working in the Western world? How genuine are these disciple-guru relations? These are things that have to be discussed. And forgive me that, I cannot satisfy, I'm incapable to satisfy that level of question in this time. And, but thank you. And we can stay in touch and, we can learn together. These are important things to think about.
You're most welcome, Prabhu. And if I may say it, as to be expected, very helpful.
Yeah, thank you for
outstanding
that.
answer to my question. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
That was a wonderful tie-in. I was also a little worried, is that on topic or not? So actually, the fact that you saw that connection was very inspiring. So I have a couple of other questions, and we'll see if there's others that come in. As young devotees, neophyte devotees, as you said, that can last a long time. Sometimes we're very wary of the world. This is the world I've been entangled in. I need to escape it, and therefore I push back against it. And we see the results of people being excessively in that hiding away from the world, shunning the world mode, whether that's not earning a livelihood properly or neglecting their family, or possibly being indifferent to mundane laws and so on. So how to go about integration and how to observe the excesses of the other side where I'm so world affirming or potentially I am getting entangled. Where's the barometer?
Yeah. With time, the playing field is getting more and more complicated. At the time of when the movement was new, Sanatana Goswami writes in the Hari Bhakti Vilas that if you want to do bhajan, if you want to come in this line and successfully culture Krishna consciousness, oh, you medieval Hindu, Indian people living in village life with no electricity and, sattvic, dharmic families and everything, you're going to need to detox all that materialism, your extreme exposure to materialism in like a religious medieval village of India by 6 months of hardcore pranayama. You'll have to cleanse your nervous system with 6 months of intensive pranayama to be able to like settle yourself to successfully apply yourself to Krishna consciousness. So things have changed a lot since then. Now the level of, especially in the West, the level of trauma exposure, like how many people are traumatized by abuse in childhood, unresolvable things, they're brain damaging things, traumatized by, in a sense, our innocence is traumatized by exposure to unmitigated sense gratification for pornography and drugs and alcohol. And it's a devastation to the collective consciousness. It's absolutely devastating. Sanatana Goswami was concerned about people in medieval sattvic religious villages being able to settle themselves to successfully develop Krishna consciousness. And so what to speak of us? We're the level of trauma of different kinds of, shock to the system is so exponentially greater than the time when our scriptures were written. Kali Yuga, this age, is the entropic factor of the degradation of human. It's happening so quickly. It's like, it's a grave situation, right? And so in one sense, it's entirely expected that a great number of people would run if they're touched, if they're so fortunate, their hearts are soft enough. Maybe they're just sentimental, or maybe they're just confused. Maybe they're like kind of half crazy and they are escapist and a fantasy about, to them, a story of, a flute playing God who's not going to throw me in hell is enough. Like, yeah, that'll do. And they throw themselves. And it's not possible for when you have an institutional level evangelism and there's no quality control, about how the teaching is going on, how the pedagogy, how the teachings are being presented, how the quality of the speakers and those who are accompanying in each village, in each community, are there elders in place who are like chaplains to the whole community to walk people through their life things and who really have digested and individuated and adulted, who can be elders. Like without that, it's just a slaughterhouse, and it's like for a lot of people that are doing things like that, denying their families, running, feeling like they can't do it, they're broken. I mean, I can empathize, it's entirely, for a lot of people, I think it's the best thing they can do for themselves. In this life, they're building some samskars of Krishna, they're making some sukriti, but their life is like actually so wounded and so terrifying and so impossible. And the age is just getting more and more terrifying that like fingers are hovering over the nuclear war red button again. And like, we're ready for the next pandemic thing. And the news is encroaching so intensely in the AI. And it's just like all these nightmare stories that the collective consciousness of humanity so badly needs to escape, to disassociate. That's why there's like, we're all addicted to the internet. And even if it's sattvic things on the internet, information, Wikipedia, watching self-help videos, but people are disassociating from the real life, real-time experience of their own process by consuming as much as they can, whether it's sattvic, whether it's rajasic, whether it's tamasic. We are culturally all disassociating. And some people, they just don't have there's so many functional crazy people. There's so many people that are materially, CEOs and things, but they're entirely sick. And there's people who are like genuinely giving their life to God, to a sweet ideal of God, and they can't get their material life together. And, the only answer for that, as it stands right now, globally, I think those people that are doing anything they can for Krishna consciousness, sincerely, desperately, fearfully, for moksha, they're doing the best they can. And Krishna says so in the Gita, like 4 kinds of people come to me: those who are distressed, those who have financial problems. Like he doesn't say everyone who's like individuated and they've done all the, sattva personal growth stuff and they're really like taking responsibility for their adult human lives. Like they come to me. He's like, no, messed up people come to me. Damaged people come to me. Lost people come to me. Only after they've come to me, they figure out that they should come to me for me. They come for relief. And so we're all on a spectrum. Our astrological constellations our astrological portfolios, karmic portfolios, are all on a whole spectrum of dysfunction. In this age, everybody's dysfunctional, and some people have a much more extreme need to disassociate. And also, even if you don't, but you're part of a collective consciousness that's entirely pushing for disassociation. Our whole culture is disassociated. We don't grow our own food. We're eating things that we don't know how they grow. That's extreme disassociation compared to like all of human history. Our level of disassociation is so total and so pervasive that it's to be expected. And the only actual way that we could respond to that is in small batches, in local communities. What we need is madhyam leaders, people who will do the work, their personal growth work, their trauma work, whatever your unfinished business is, so you can succeed in bhajan. It's both. You have to really, we need people in every community who are really going to go hard, who are going to chant 64 rounds, and who are really going to live a life of prayer, and who are also going to do their trauma work and get their stuff together, who can be like, not trying to be guru, but just trying to be like, actually represent the living tradition for my people, humbly for their people. And they can be like a chaplain. They can be an elder brother, elder sister to the people around and try and walk. But if we just, as many books as possible, there was a time that was necessary, as many people to join as possible, that's not really in the favor of the quality of the mission. And that's not really in the favor of the quality of the collective consciousness and taking care of like people who are wounded, who need personal attention. They could be successful in this life in their Krishna consciousness. Because if we're just here to escape, we won't actually be that successful in Krishna consciousness. You'll make a lot of sukriti, you'll get some good samskars. Next life, you'll have a quantum leap to a more healthy family, maybe upstream in a couple hundred years back when things are more sattvic and you're slowly moving into like more workable global circumstances. So it's not a loss, but it's really, the truth is our generation right now, we're just seeing slaughterhouse, chaos. And people need to take responsibility for their own vertical connection. Who can hear that call really needs to step up their game of like cleansing their heart and becoming empowered by the parampara through deep integrity work at all levels, and then committing to their community to not be the guru figure necessarily, not be the celebrity, but to be an elder servant and hold the hand of people who are scared and hurt, but are coming to a beautiful ideal of God, of a sweet love with God. Like those people should be cherished and protected. And it's not their fault that they're doing the best they can to, the escapism and the disassociation is like, what else are you going to do at the end of the world? No, to the masses. It's the naturalist thing to do at this time, disassociate. And if someone by accident, by circumstance, by fortune is disassociating in any kind of godly context, they're lucky. We could make them more lucky though if we had the local infrastructure of just like mental health facility, but it doesn't have to be called that, just like elders who care and who are competent, spiritually competent, who are under the influence of grace. A person who lives a life of prayer will become under the influence of grace, and they will have relevant things to say to the people who come to them. They will be successful. They will be empowered by Kripa Shakti herself. Devi Grace will empower people who make themselves available, who do enough personal world denial, clearing out their personal preferences and personal material aspirations, emptying it all out. Let your work be done in me. Who make room for God and God's plans. Those people will be empowered and they will have relevant love and wisdom for the friends around them.
I might see if there's a couple of other questions to come in. I'll just mention an observation here. I used to actually teach when I ran the Bhakti program, we're talking decades ago, from the 7 purposes of ISKCON. And it always occurred to me that first purpose of ISKCON, Prabhupada's incorporated purposes, is world affirming. In fact, I'll see if I can paraphrase. To systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, and educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and achieve real unity and peace in the world. So he doesn't mention anything about go back to Godhead, recover your Swarup, do all of these world-denying kind of things. It's all about a contribution in the here and now, that spiritual knowledge has something to offer us in the here and now. And I always thought that was stunning that Prabhupada led his articulation of the purposes with a contribution in the here and now. I don't know if you want to say anything about that. I'm just scrolling to see what other questions that we may have.
Yeah, just quickly on that. I think it's like, yeah, it's definitely inspiring that was the first thing he had to say. You know, it's very grounding. It's like, we're having a realistic conversation here. It's not starting with like, you know, it has to be like that. Proper education, proper formation, training has to start like that. But also, it's in the context of Prabhupada. He would say, my only concern, my only interest is to go back to Krishna Loka and eat Krishna's kachoris. You know, I want to sit with Krishna at lunchtime and steal his kachoris. It's like, that's in his heart in the nighttime when he was getting massaged and things like that, when he was in his moonlight state. You know, he also was like, my only concern is to be with Krishna. So it's in context. And yeah, there was something else I want to say about that. Anyway, I slipped it. I forgot what I was going to say.
Hopefully, if you remember, you can add it to comments in the threads below and so on. Maybe there's time for a couple of other questions. One thing that struck me as you were talking, you talked about the sacred feminine being paved over, but the ships were still finding their way to burst through that pavement and so on. Could you say a little bit more about that, why you're so confident that this is now a time for addressing that imbalance?
Ooh, I wish we could start that conversation when there was more than 9 minutes left. This is...
I don't know if it's a hard finish at 90. I noticed that some sessions have gone on slightly longer, so don't feel that you completely have to edit yourself down.
There's no exhausting that topic right now, but it's good that it can be introduced. One little speck of pollen is enough, you know? One little speck of pollen on a bumblebee, if it touches the right spot, is enough to provoke a process of fruiting. So even a little bit is important. So how to do justice to this? My name is Tamal Krishna Das. You know, Krishna is compared to a tamal tree because it's dark, bluish when it rains in Vrindavan, and the trees, it's so vividly blackish shyam color and kind of crooked, and you know, so Krishna is compared to tamal tree. And tamal tree doesn't really have significant flowers. Its flowers are these little white things, and its fruits are like these little mangosteen-looking things that only super desperate monkeys will try to eat. They're not tasty. It's not sweet. Flowers are not nice. Tree is kind of scrawny. The tamal tree is not so great. But if a golden Madhavi vine will climb it, you know, there's this golden creeper, if it will take shelter of that tree as her pillar and ascend, embracing him, it looks so striking, so beautiful. There's so many poems of the Goswamis. You know, Rupa Goswami, Utkalika Valari, he says, Madhavya Madhuranga Kanana Pada Praptadi Raja Shriya Brindaranya Vikasi Saurabhate Tapi Kalpa Dharma Notapam Jagadeva Yasya Bhajate Kirti Chatha Chayaya Chitra Tasya Tavangri Sanidhi Jusham Kimva Falaptir Ninam. So there's a wish-fulfilling tamal tree at the center of Vrindavan, in the center, the epicenter of the spiritual world is Yogapeeth, the like center point of all things, the bindu and the drop of the yantra of eternal reality. And at that place, there's an axis, the tree of life, like in Norse and so many traditions. There's a tree of life at the center. The center is a tamal tree embraced by a golden vine. You know, it's a metaphor for Radha Krishna, but also Radha Krishna are sitting underneath. And Shri Rupa was saying, when they embrace together, whoever will come under the shade of that tree, of the two of them combined, the burning of the world, the shade of that tree will completely cool all the burning of the world, all the distress, you know, the adibautic, adiatmic, adidaivik, all the burnings of samsara, all the incessant distress of embodied existence, where the soul is, you know, incessantly uncomfortable. We can disassociate from it, we can repress it, but the soul is incessantly boxed. And, you know, it's terrible. And that burning of material existence for one who pertains to love and nectar, to be in a place of death, and that burning is completely relieved if you come under the shelter of these two combined together. And kim va phalaptir ninam, who can say what fruit a person will receive from that? He's not saying from the vine, from the tree of life that is vrikshavali. It's the two of them together. And so Hare Krishna means the two of them together, Radha and Krishna. No, the great marriage of alchemy, of individuation. Achintya Beta Beta Tattva means to bring the two together. When they're together, when a golden vine wraps around the black tamal tree, the contrast is so striking and beautiful. The tamal tree becomes beautiful by the flowers, by the foliage, by the golden, coils. That tamal tree now becomes very beautiful, whereas before it was okay on its own. So the masculine element, and here I'm not talking about men and women. This is not a social commentary. This is about primordial powers, and it's about God, and it's about our own androgyne nature. It's not about men and women and gender ideology or anything. The masculine is the axis. It's not beautiful by itself. And the feminine, she needs that axis to ascend. And when she ascends, she beautifies. She makes it worth, she makes life worth living. Beauty makes life worth living. Pathos, eros, the beauty, the flourishing fluidity of life. That's the taste of life, but it has to ascend on logos, not to reduce Radha and Krishna to like philosophical principles, because philosophical principles are the shadow of them. The principles originally are people, the divine couple. So we have culture, and this is a huge topic that I cannot do justice to in 4 minutes. It's a long historical topic, and at the core of this is the diagnosis of why humanity is in such trouble, how Kali Yuga is advancing, how impersonalism is penetrating everything, infiltrating everything like a malignant, metastasizing cancer. This one gray blob of, impersonalism is swallowing everything until we can destroy the environment, we can destroy ourselves, we can destroy everything. All sacred cultures are nothing to us. We just more and more plastic commodity. It's all this nihilism comes from a unipolar life, from just the masculine, just logos, just philosophy and theology, and just having the answers. When you have the answers, when you have the truth, and your book has the truth, then you can go to across the sea. The Roman Catholic Church, conquistadors, they can go to a place like Peru. I lived in the Sacred Valley for years. I've seen Tipon, these like water temples, and Chavin. There's these places, the architecture, the sense of heaven and earth, integrating the love of nature and Pachamama and nature and God, and the like sophisticated beauty of being human. It's like otherworldly, but super worldly. It's like corn, and quinoa and mountains and rain. It's like as worldly as you can get. And it's as otherworldly as you can get. It's so, to us in this day and age, going and just seeing the broken stones left over, it's like astonishing. It doesn't fit in your paradigm how human beings can be so holy, so beautiful, so astonishingly sacred, so meaningful, and so aligned with everything, and so wise and mystical. And when you have just the word, the logos, this book is the word. That's just a passport to crush nature, to rape nature, to objectify nature, to objectify cultures who have their own spirituality that comes from their land and their nature, indigenous cultures, which originally all cultures are indigenous. Every sacred tradition is the voice of the land where it's born. India is the, Vedic tradition is the voice of India. This land on the earth is speaking in this form of religion. The Incan Empire and Andean cosmovision, that's the voice of the Andes. That's the voice of a land. The Celts of, these Celtic ways and all these sacred Norse, stories and all these rituals. And that's the voice of the land speaking through people who live close to the land. And that's a very feminine thing, to take shelter of the land, to look to her, to nature as guru, to be guided by her, to learn from her. Even our Western culture comes from pre-Socratic, Parmenides is like very shamanic. They would go into the ground and fast in incubation for 4 days, waiting for Sophia, waiting for Persephone, waiting for the unnamed goddess of the mystery to come and personally speak. They're not waiting for an epiphany, waiting for an insight to write my book. They're waiting for her. Philosophia means philia, love, devotion for Sophia. philosopher originally was not a bunch of Athenian aristocracy creating democracy, that we, a bunch of rich men, will decide together how society works. Philosophia was initiates going into the ground and begging and fasting and sacrificing, waiting for the goddess to come and teach them the laws of nature upon which to build society, how to heal. What are the laws of society? What are the laws of nature? What are the laws of medicine? That's the philosopher. They were the lawmakers and the healers and the visionaries. Who were they? Sophia's Philia, the bhaktas of Lady Wisdom, who lies in the mystery, not in the written fixed word, organic, really the need to listen to her. And without that, how can we have a living Krishna consciousness? We know too much. We know so many details about how Krishna's like this and Krishna's like that. We have so much knowledge that we forget that we have to reach in the mystery to really realize these things. We have to realize we need that the holy name, Sri Nam Prabhu, the true and living God, will reveal himself and herself, Hare. Without revelation, without the living, subjective, feminine side of things that beautifies the tradition, the winding vine that ornaments the tradition, the knowledge is great and it's necessary. The beautiful feelings, the bhav, cannot ascend without the platform, without the pillar of sacred knowledge. And also sacred rituals that you chant this many rounds and you get up in the morning and you have to do some, known things. You need a container for your life. That's very masculine. But the container is to hold something very organic and living. And so our tradition coming into the hands of Westerners, it changed. We, the Western culture, has paved over all sacred traditions in the world, has obliterated, stamped out, paved them over. Pavement means we don't even want to touch this earth. We don't want to have any contact with that. We want our ways from Rome or from Socrates or from whatever we're inheriting. This is the one truth, empiric science. Now it becomes whatever political ideal is your favorite ideal. We're colonizing. People are not really fighting for freedom and for inclusivity. A lot of people in the name of that are fighting to pave over other voices. It's infiltrated everywhere, even into so-called freedom fighting and liberalism. There's a logo-centric, unguided, completely anti-feminine. Even feminists can have it, It's a spirit. It's not about men or women or sexuality. It's a spirit of impersonalism, masculine logos, without the beautification, without living to serve her. If the knowledge is not living to serve her, bhakti, the living thing, it's not beautiful. And not only that, it's a unipolar life. And a unipolar life, every single one of us is born from mommy and daddy coming together. If there's not masculine and feminine, there's no life. Life comes from life. And life means the connection of the polarity. And just logos, socio-religious, institutional, or ideological, without living experience, without love for the community, it's death, actually. It's not just flat. It's what's destroying the world. So when I say it's time, the Sophia element, the feminine element, Radhika's foot dust is the medicine to heal the world. Without that, there's no value to all of our preaching and chanting. My Guru would say, chant, if you have a bunch of Kanishta Adhikaris chanting together, there's not anyone who's gone the distance to even madhyam. They haven't even adulted spiritually. If you just have devotees who haven't gone the distance, sacrificed enough, carved themselves out enough to actually be receptive, feminine enough to be receptive to a transmission and start to become a Vaishnava, capital V Vaishnava, that kind of kirtan is like the barking of dogs. It's not really valuable. We make some sukriti, but what's needed in this day and age is real living spirit, real living medicine and grace. And that has been unplugged. When we are implicated, consciously or unconsciously, in a defeminizing culture, in an anti-nature, anti-world, anti-feeling, anti-circle and community, anti-equality, hierarchical masculine logos culture, there's no power there because Shakti is feminine. Masculine means creating a platform, a container, creating the conditions. We all want to drink, but you need a cup for that. But to have a fancy cup with no juice inside is no use to anyone. You'll die.
Prabhu, thank you. And you may well have laid down the foundations for future talks, but thank you very much for preparing such thought-provoking content for us today. I will stop the live stream now. I might invite those who are on the Zoom call if they want to come off mute and express their appreciation. Put your cameras on if you like. But major thanks, Prabhuji. That was certainly, thought-provoking, fertile. So we potentially have some future topics that picks up. Hare Krishna to everybody. Thank you for watching, and please share. If there are further questions, please pop them in the thread underneath the video, and I'm sure Tamal Prabhu will be happy to address them. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, everyone. Hare Krishna.